All right, we're back. So we were talking about the national press. Now, the national press plays really three roles. There's three de facto functions that they serve in their coverage of what's going on. One of those is gatekeeper. Gatekeeper, and what that means is they help to influence what subjects become national issues and for how long. Now, again, this does not mean that they can just pick anything they want and keep it a national issue forever. Um, but there is some truth that they have influence over what becomes issues. For instance, with global warming, liberals say it absolutely exists. Many conservatives think it's just nonsense. But the national press keeps reiterating this issue of global warming to where if you even question it, you're ludicrous. Um, some subjects just become the subjects because they are so critically important, such as the impeachment, and now with COVID-19. But those are really the exceptions. That as their in their function as gatekeeper, they really have a lot of sway in what becomes national issues and for how long. They also are scorekeepers. What does this mean? Scorekeepers. It means that they help to make or break reputations. They often focus more on the contest than on the candidates and their proposals. So, as we've been watching with the presidential primaries with Biden and Bernie Sanders, and even before this with Elizabeth Warren and Buttigieg, it was really about who's winning the primaries. Early on, Sanders and Buttigieg were winning, and they were the horses, so to speak, out in front winning, and they were the ones to beat if you were going to win this thing. So what journalism, particularly with elections, this becomes known as horse race journalism, which means which candidate is leading in the polls or in the primaries versus what is it that the candidates themselves are proposing and how would what policies they would pursue. So this function of scorekeeper is a little askew itself, and it shows you that sometimes, even though the media is the watchdog, sometimes they are even off the mark. So again, we talked about this early on. So the other function, the third function of the media is they are a watchdog. And there is this compulsive instinct to investigate anything and anyone because if they can show something, if they can bring somebody down, if they can show some corruption, there will be prestige and profit in it for them. So we've already given you the example of Woodward and Bernstein in helping to bring down Richard Nixon. Another one you may not be familiar with, in 1984, 1984, Gary Hart was running for the Democratic primary, and he was in the lead, as horse race journalism would say. And because he was in the lead, going back to this slide right here, there is this compulsion of the media to look deeper into him and see what's going on with him. And what happened was they found something that they began to question him on. And what they found was there seemed to be this young intern by the name of Donna Rice who was around the campaign seemingly all the time. And they began to suspect something was going on between her and Gary Hart. And so they asked Gary Hart at one point, "Who's Donna Rice?" And he said something really stupid. He said, "If you think there's something going on between me and Donna Rice, prove it." So he offered what they call in the press business a non-denial denial. He's denied it without denying it. And you never want to say this to the press because then they'll go about trying to prove it. All right. So Gary Hart offered this non-denial denial, and so of course the press did what it does. It goes about trying to investigate and see if that's really the whole truth. They're performing their watchdog function, and this is what they found, and they printed in their paper. Notice the name of the boat here, Monkey Business. Gary Hart's T-shirt, Monkey Business Crew. So they say truth is stranger than fiction because it's not confined to reality. So the press got this photo of Gary Hart and Donna Rice sitting on his lap at one point right here in front of this monkey business yacht that they were on. And so there it is. The press performed their function as watchdog and brought down the leading Democratic contender for the presidential primary in 1984. Not that they're trying to bring people down, but on the other hand, perhaps they are trying to bring people down because that gives them this prestige and profit. But it serves the public well because it lets us know who somebody really is. Can this be taken too far? Can everything be about the muck? Yes, it can be taken too far, but it also depends on which side of the aisle you're on and who's being investigated. Talk radio. This is an exception. So you recall we said that the national press has a liberal bias. Talk radio is an exception to this reality. Talk radio has a decidedly conservative bias. I've already mentioned Rush Limbaugh in this week's videos. Rush Limbaugh, Limbaugh, in one sense, single-handedly created conservative national radio, and others mimicked him. Today, you've got Sean Hannity and just a myriad of other people who have really followed in the footprints of Rush Limbaugh, and just tear into the liberals on on talk radio. President Clinton, he was Rush Limbaugh's prime target when Rush was just starting off in radio. And Clinton said, why don't we have a Rush Limbaugh, meaning the liberals? Why don't we have a Rush Limbaugh? And he was just upset with the liberal establishment. They didn't have somebody out there on the radio waves talking up their agenda. And even today, there's really not any strong liberal proponent on the radio, and it's decidedly conservative. So that is an exception to the national press being liberal. Politicians and spinning. So with politicians, what they will try to do is they will try to spin some event in a positive light. Now, whether or not the press holds them on this, or whether or not the press does it, depending upon their particular political persuasion, the press can also spin. So politicians try and spin or phrase things in some positive or negative light, depending on which side of the aisle they are sitting on, in an attempt to shape public opinion to the perception that they desire. Leaks. Why are there so many leaks in our system? There are leaks in our system at least for three reasons, and these are the big three reasons. First of all, the Constitution has made it that way. Not intentionally so, but the way it's worked out. The Constitution, there are three branches in our national system, and each one of those branches presses for its own advantage. So occasionally there are leaks to try and persuade the public to a particular point of view as opposed to another point of view. Another reason why there are leaks is with the post-Vietnam and Watergate eras, journalists are less willing to take at face value what politicians say to them. In Vietnam, the nation as a whole felt that we were lied to as to reasons why we got into Vietnam. With Watergate, same kind of idea. Nixon lied to us as to what was really going on. And so because of that, journalists are less willing to take what politicians say at face value, and they're looking for the real story. For instance, it's rumored that JFK had an affair with Marilyn Monroe when he was in the White House, and back in those days it was just kind of a gentleman's agreement. You just didn't talk about that stuff. Women weren't in the media, but since post-Vietnam and Watergate, everything is on the table. There's nothing off limits. Journalists will go for everything. Another reason why we have leaks in our system is because politicians themselves will attempt to gauge public opinion by leaking information and then seeing how the public reacts to that. These are called trial balloons. It used to be in ballooning. These ballooners that brought people up in these big balloons, they would let out little party-sized balloon to see which way the wind was blowing and how fast it was blowing to gauge when they should go up. And it's the same kind of idea here with these trial balloons. Politicians will leak information in an attempt to see where the public is at on a certain issue. All right. Might do one more video, but here are 4 for now.